You can easily see it in the fields and pastures of the southern Great Plains, the effects of intense weather.
You don't have to think about it as climate change to acknowledge, like, droughts are more of a problem than they used to be, or that we tend to have long periods without rain, and then we'll have torrential rainfall, and then we'll have another long period without rain. And how do you cope with that?
Something is changing, and how are they going to be able to continue to do what they do with these changes and take a long look at it?
A survey was conducted through the Grazing Cap Grant, asking beef producers and extension educators in Oklahoma and Kansas what they think about climate change. Sociologist Terry Becerra helped write the survey.
How is climate change affecting producers, not only in how their production process and what they're producing and how they're producing it, but then how does that affect their families? How does that affect their income? How does that affect the towns that they live in and their communities?
Anthropologist Amber Campbell is the project manager.
A big part of it is just needing to know where the extension educators that we're dealing with are starting from.
Extension educators were asked, how do they feel about climate change? Are their constituents asking for help with the effects of climate variability? And do extension educators feel prepared to answer questions specifically about climate change?
The majority of extension educators, 2/3 of them roughly, felt they had low capacity to handle those sorts of topics. So that is a big problem in terms of them not feeling as though they can adequately handle those questions.
In fact, only 6% said they had high capacity to answer those climate change questions. So why such low numbers?
The big answer was that they didn't have access to reliable information.
And I think it is one of those things that's become so politicized, it's easier to just not talk about the issue at all. And so in some ways that discourages them from developing their own capacity around it.
But extension educators were getting questions from producers as extreme drought conditions scorched the plains. It's just that nobody called it climate change.
They have said it's one of the things that they get questions about, but it's actually they're getting them in sort of a roundabout way.
So they were asking questions about, how do I plan for drought? What do I do for drought?
They don't necessarily get questions about climate change, but they do get questions about drought and extreme weather and how to cope with sort of all the things that are climate change, but they're not phrased as questions about climate change.
Now extension educators are able to answer their questions using the latest research made available through the Grazing Cap Grant.
Some of the things we've been doing is we have a webinar series that is directed largely at extension educators and other professionals working in the agricultural sector with producers.
I want to talk about beef cattle supplementation.
To get educators information that they believe is reliable and credible, and to get it in their hands so that they're actually using something.
And we also have had training at the annual extension meetings for both Kansas State and Oklahoma State. And just generally, we've been trying to provide those materials that extension educators can provide to producers.
And that information has resulted in changes by producers.
We usually, when we get feedback, it tends to be from producers who saw our extension specialists at meetings and sent them emails about how they plan on changing their production practices as a result of the information we're providing.
Producers will continue to see management practices being updated as research results are reviewed and refined by extension specialists. If you'd like to see full results from both the Extension Educator Survey and the Producer Survey, follow the links at greatplainsgrazing.org.